So you're thinking about going to Buenos Aires. Maybe it's just a regular vacation for you. Maybe you're a digital nomad looking to plan your next base. Or maybe you're just sitting in a cubicle plotting your escape and dreaming about leaving everything behind. That was me about 1 year ago. I quit my job and decided to start a digital nomading journey. Buenos Aires was the first city that I went to, and I stayed there for 1 month. In this video, I'm going to give you my honest take on the city. I'm going to tell you the stuff I liked, the stuff I didn't like so much, and what you need to know if you're planning a trip there yourself. And I'll also tell you how I spent $8 while waiting for my flight at the Austin airport that completely changed my life. So stick around for that story. I'll be honest, ending up in Buenos Aires was a bit of a throw a dart at the map decision for me. I had spent a few months at home after quitting my job with my parents, and I started to get that itch of just being ready to do the next thing. So I started Googling, and Buenos Aires popped up in some of the results, and I thought, why not? Seems like a good a destination as any. So I did it. I booked my one-way ticket. I started watching El Encargado, which is an Argentinian show that speaks in Argentinian Spanish, so you get to learn the slang, and started to look forward to the trip, to the next chapter of my life. Travel day comes, and it's time to go. I fly from Austin to Atlanta, Georgia, and then Atlanta, Georgia to Buenos Aires overnight on a red-eye flight. And I arrived in Buenos Aires with a bit of a strange feeling. And if you've never solo traveled, you might not know what I'm talking about. Or if you have solo traveled, maybe you relate to this. But it's a weird feeling when you get there and it's your first time traveling alone and you realize that you don't know anyone within like a 5,000-mile radius. You're in a place where you don't fluently speak the language. Like, I spoke a little bit of Spanish, so I was a little bit more comfortable. But I'm still definitely not highly proficient. So it's a bit uncomfortable being there because you can't really communicate with everyone. Everything is brand new. You don't know how any of the apps work. You don't know how anything works, really. So it's a bit like, I call it anxiety. It's like you're anxious but also excited. So that feeling was really strong for me when I was at the airport. So let me try to put you in my shoes for what the first couple of hours was like. You arrive at the airport, you're super sleepy. I personally can't sleep on planes very well because I don't know, it just can't. So I took a red-eye flight, slept maybe 30 minutes. So I arrived super tired. I got an Uber from the airport because that's the app that I already had on my phone. I knew how Uber would work, so I felt comfortable trying it. And I got an Uber from the airport. Then it was kind of a weird 40-minute, maybe hour-long Uber ride from the airport to my Airbnb, and I was trying to speak my broken Spanish to the guy to have small talk and figure out things about the city. And I'm looking around out the window and I'm noticing like it doesn't look exactly like I would imagine. There's kind of a lot of graffiti. Some of the areas on the outskirts look a little bit sketchy, and I'm thinking to myself like, okay, here we go. But anyways, I arrive at my Airbnb. My host is super nice. She let me check in early because she knew I was on a red-eye flight, and she let me into the apartment, but she only spoke Spanish. So I'm trying to communicate with her in my limited Spanish. She knows no English at all, so I have to do all of the meeting halfway. She's explaining where things are, if I can take the bus, things like that. And finally gives me the key, leaves, and that's it. Like, I'm checked in now. And that's just the start. So you're checked in, and then you have a whole list of other things you start to have to do. For example, first thing, you're hungry. Like, don't eat very much on a flight or in the airport, so I arrived hungry. To get food, you need cash, and to get cash in Argentina is a bit trickier than you might expect. So you start figuring out on your phone how to get cash. Oh, but wait, your phone doesn't have a charger. You don't have an adapter that plugs into the plug there yet. So now you have to figure out how to go get an adapter. So you need an adapter, you need to charge your phone, you need to figure out how to get cash, you need to find a restaurant for you to eat. So it might seem like small things, but it's a lot of small things, and there's no one else there to help you. You have to figure it all out on your own. So eventually I figured it out. I got money from Western Union, I got my phone charger, I got everything done, and ended up getting a full belly and took a nap right away because I was so tired. So I just got food and then went straight back home and slept for a few hours to try to shake off some of the jet lag. Okay, so let's now get into the practical stuff. Is Buenos Aires a good city to live in, to visit, to work in? Short answer for me is obviously a yeah. I liked it a lot. So what are some of the good things that I liked? Well, the city has a lot of the modern conveniences that you might expect. Like, it has a lot of cafes with good Wi-Fi. It has a public transit system. There's buses and a metro. I never actually took the metro myself because I didn't find myself needing it, but it's there if you need it. They have ride-sharing apps like Uber and Cabify, and there's plenty of modern accommodations for you to be comfortable in the city. There's also, they have kioscos, which is basically like a little tiny store where you can get, snacks, a drink, a bottle of wine sometimes, and they're all over the place. So if you need something small, very convenient to go walk a block or two and get something that you need. Also, I found in Buenos Aires that the parks there are very nice. There's a ton of big parks, a lot of green spaces with trees and stuff, and the chaotic city can get overwhelming sometimes. So it's good to take a walk and go into the trees and just kind of relax, sit on the grass. You'll see a bunch of other people there with their dogs, with their yerba mate, just hanging out, enjoying life on a blanket and passing around their gourd of mate. So the parks there were really nice. I enjoyed that a lot. The food scene there is also really good. There's a lot of international options. So if you want different kinds of cuisine, they have options for you. And for me, I really like the Argentinian cuisine because they're heavy on red meat and I love steak. So there's steak everywhere you go. And it's really good. They also have empanadas, which are really good. If you have a sweet tooth, they're also known for dulce de leche, which is a good sweet dessert that you can have after having a nice big steak. Another benefit to the food and drink scene there is the wine. Because it's so close to Mendoza, I mean, Mendoza is literally in Argentina, it's a 1-hour flight away. You have really good access to like 5-star wine for 1-star prices. So you can get a $5 bottle of wine in Argentina is probably the equivalent of like a $30 bottle of wine in the US. That's how good it is. So it's really good if you're into the wine scene. Also, I think it's a good destination if you want to try to learn Spanish because it's very effective at getting you to actually speak Spanish. Not very many people there speak English, like at all. So you have to put in the effort to learn and try to get by with Spanish. So it's a bit of trial by fire, but I think actually if that's your goal, if you want to get more practice in speaking Spanish and you want to improve it, then going to a place like Buenos Aires is a comfortable city in which you can learn Spanish quickly. I will say though that the Argentinian Spanish is a bit different. So for me, I'm used to speaking Mexican Spanish, which is its own thing altogether. But Argentinian Spanish is very different from that. So they have a different accent and they have different slang. And for me, it took me quite a while to even understand the words they're saying. Like, for example, in Mexico, you'd say like, me llamo David, my name is David. In Argentina, you'd say, me llamo David. So for me, hearing sh, like I couldn't even recognize the words they were saying sometimes. It would just throw my brain off. Learning the accent and learning the local slang can be a little bit tricky, but still, learning Spanish there, pretty effective. Okay, so for me, I definitely think the city has its upsides, but to give you a more realistic view, I'm going to talk now about the things that might annoy you if you travel there. First up, and I don't know why this is the case, but it is the case, the people there seem to just be bad walkers. And what I mean by this is like, they don't have spatial awareness, so you'll be walking on the sidewalk and someone's just walking directly into you, bonk, and they'll run into you, no problem, no acknowledgement, no nothing, just kind of like walk into you, where there'll be 3 people wide on the sidewalk that only fits 3 people and you're trying to go by and they don't make way for you at all, so you have to walk into the street. Or you're walking and then someone just decides to stop in the busy intersection where people are going left and right and they're just stopped there right in the middle. So it might seem minor and it's a weird thing to notice, but it happened enough for me that I did notice it, so I wanted to mention it here. Second thing is that there's dog poop everywhere. The city is super dog friendly. A lot of people have dogs, so it's not uncommon to see a dog walker walking a leash of like 20 dogs sometimes. Not kidding, like that many dogs. But one consequence of this is that those dogs poop. And usually those dog walkers walking 20 dogs don't stop to pick it up, or at least I saw a couple of times where they didn't. And that just means that there's poop on the sidewalks sometimes. So you have to be careful with where you step because sometimes you might step in a big dog pile and nobody wants that. The next one is probably the most annoying, at least it was for when I went there. This was in 2024 and the government's changed a bit since then, so maybe it's not exactly the same today, but I don't think it's changed that much. And that's going to be the money problem. So in Argentina, cash is still king. They do accept card payments in some places, but most of the time it depends on your specific card on what exchange rate you get. And there's 2 exchange rates in Argentina that you need to know about. The official one, which is okay, it's the official one. And then there's what's called the blue dollar rate, which is a better, more favorable exchange rate. And that's the one you want to try to be targeting so that you don't automatically lose 10% of your money when you switch it into pesos. So money can be a bit annoying there. And you have 2 options for getting cash. You have the cuevas, which is basically some people standing on the street yelling, cambio, cambio. And that just means like change, change. So you bring them crisp $100 bills and then they give you back Argentinian pesos. But to me, that seemed like a little sketchy. I didn't really want to do that. So I just used Western Union. All you do is like sign up for Western Union and you transfer yourself money So I transferred money from my US bank account to myself in Western Union, and then I go to the storefront and just say, hey, I have this transfer, I need to pick up the cash, and then they give you cash. And the exchange rate with Western Union is not as good as like the perfect unofficial blue dollar rate, but it's pretty close. It's definitely better than the official exchange rate, so I found it to be the most convenient option for me that I felt safest doing while I was there in Argentina. It's a bit annoying to get cash, but it's definitely possible. It just takes a little bit of extra effort to make sure you have the cash and that you're not getting ripped off at every corner, losing 10% on the exchange rate. Something that comes with the territory of being in South America also is you just have to be aware. Like, you have to be more aware of what you're doing in Buenos Aires than Bangkok, for example, because safety is a concern. For me, I didn't have any major problems with it. I didn't see any crime. I wasn't a victim of any crime. So I personally had no problems. I know it does happen, and I took the precautions necessary to try to make myself not a target. So you do have to think a little bit about safety. Some common things that people say, is like, don't keep your phone in your hand. If you're having dinner, don't keep your phone on the table. Try not to wear flashy jewelry, try to blend in, speak Spanish so you don't stick out, things like that. But like I said, I didn't have any problems with it. I didn't feel super sketchy in any areas. So for me, safety, not that big of a problem, but you do have to be mindful of it. So it could be a bit annoying if you're used to not thinking about it at all, like in Southeast Asia, for example. The last one's not super important. It's just something I found interesting and wanted to share, is that clothing there is pretty expensive. Like, US prices are sometimes even higher than US prices, which I didn't expect. For example, I wanted a pair of white shoes. I didn't travel with like nice shoes that I could wear out to a restaurant or something. I just had tennis shoes. So I stopped to get a plain pair of white leather shoes, the most basic ones I could find. And I ended up having to pay $100 for them, which was crazy to me. I think they have like an import tax or something. There's some policy there in Argentina that causes the clothes to be expensive. So if you're hoping to go there to buy a bunch of clothes, or you want to pack light and buy there, maybe just pack the stuff, because buying clothes there can be pretty expensive. So that's the practical stuff. The good, the not so good, and the things you might need to know if you're going. The city is great. It's got its refined areas, it's got its more gritty areas, it's a bit chaotic, and the people there, in my experience, were fantastic. Like, they had a lot of passion, they were very friendly, and they're very polite. So like, every time you go in and out of a store, they say hola or adios. And it just seems like the people there are very warm and open, which I really enjoyed. So that could have been my whole story. I could have just had 1 month there, had a great time, and then left. But there's another twist in the story, so buckle up, because this is where it gets interesting. So remember when I mentioned I spent $8 in the Austin airport that changed my life? This is that story. So I was sitting there at the gate, waiting for my flight in Austin, mindlessly scrolling through Instagram like people do, And I was sitting there and I saw a story from one of my friends that I went to college with, and it said something like, if you're trying to make friends as an adult in a new city, I tried this app and it worked great for me, so maybe you could try it. And I thought, let's check it out. And it's called Time Left. The whole concept is that they set you up with dinner with complete strangers. You don't know who they are. All you know before the dinner is what their nationality is. They just show you like an emoji of their flag and their star sign. So like if they're a Libra or a Scorpio, whatever. So I thought, on a just complete whim, to take the person's advice, and I spent $8 to book a reservation with dinner with strangers, I think on my 3rd day in Argentina. It turns out that was a great idea. So I show up a little early, and I'm thinking, because I'm in Latin America, I'll probably be the first one. But it turns out I was not the first one. There was already a girl sitting there, and I walk up and she looks at me and she goes, hola, and I say, hey, how's it going? She goes, oh, you must be the American. And yeah, guilty as charged. I got caught right away as the odd gringo out, because she saw on the app that the American flag was there in the group of nationalities, and immediately she could tell that that was me. But anyways, the dinner was great, and we all went to a bar afterwards that was like a speakeasy themed like a prison, so that was cool. And everyone had a great time. We exchanged contact information, and then a couple of weeks, maybe 1 or 2 weeks later, I texted everyone in the group and I was like, hey, do you want to meet up again? And we went out again for another round of drinks. But this time something was strange, I noticed, because this girl that I met, her name was Juliane, the first one there at the dinner, she started making prolonged eye contact with me. She started laughing more at my jokes, and maybe you see where this is going. But we started to just get along very well. And I was thinking to myself, like, this could be trouble. So after that hangout, I decided to text her again one day, and I was like, hey, you want to go like work at a cafe? And she said yes, and we decided, to drop the whole work part, and we ended up just getting brunch at a cafe, and that went super well too. So we didn't want to end the day there, so we went from brunch, and then we went for a walk in the park, and then we got ice cream, and then we went to a zoo for some reason, and basically we just kept finding excuses to not let the day end. So we ended up like 15,000 steps later, I don't know how many kilometers we walked, and then we ended up laying down in a park together at the end of the day, watching the parakeets fly overhead and staring at the clouds. And it was at that moment that I felt brave, but not the most brave. So I just gave her a little kiss on the forehead, and this is where she got me, because she looked at me in my eyes and then she said, "You missed." Oof. I'm gonna be honest, that's smooth. That's smooth. Needless to say, we started hanging out every day after that, and then I went on to Mendoza. And you might be thinking, what? Wait. You left? You just went to Mendoza? Yes, but don't worry. The story has a happy ending, because I had a conversation with Juliane the day before I left, and we were kind of like, well, what do we do? And I was like, well, you could just come with me on my travels. And this crazy girl said, yeah, okay. So she met up with me in Santiago. That went great. And then we met up again in Colombia. And then since Colombia, we've been traveling all over together. And now I'm filming this many months later in Da Nang, Vietnam. And Juliane is right here. So, would I recommend Buenos Aires as a city that you'd travel to or potentially nomad to for a month or so, maybe even work long-term, live there? For me, yeah, absolutely. I think the city has its quirks. You know, there are some things that take some getting used to, but for what it offers, I think it's fantastic value. And for me, one of my top 3 cities that I visited in the last year of my travels. If you're thinking about going, I recommend going, because it could change your life, just like it changed mine. And if you're seriously planning on traveling there, I built a website called StayMapper, and it helps you find the best neighborhood to stay in cities around the world, and Buenos Aires is on there. If you want to figure out where the best location is for you, which neighborhood is best for which type of person, where the nearest cafes are, this website is completely free. I built it to help travelers just like you and me. I recommend you checking it out, because I've used it so far on my travels in different cities around the world, and it's been super helpful for me to pick a location that I know I will enjoy. And for me, I spend at least a month in each city, so it's really annoying or kind of just like a waste of your time and money if you stay somewhere and you don't like your location because you're there for a whole month and you've committed to that. So if you want to make a smarter investment with your money and where you're staying on your vacation or on your travels, check out StayMapper. It can help you out. And if you made it this far in the video, I want to say thank you, because this is going to be the start of my attempt at posting more regular content, like more frequent content. I've posted a few videos before, but I've never really committed to actually staying consistent and posting a lot. But now that I'm traveling full-time, I think I have plenty of stories to tell, plenty of advice to give, and things that will provide value for you, the viewer. So if you feel like hearing stories about some of my travels, I'm going to be talking about Mendoza, Santiago, Peru. I traveled all around Peru, so many cities there. Colombia, a few cities in Colombia, Quito, Ecuador, and now I'm in Southeast Asia, so you'll hear about Bangkok, you'll hear about Chiang Mai, you'll hear about Vietnam, and anywhere I go next. So if you want to hear valuable information from a traveler who's actually been there, done that, I recommend subscribing. If you don't want to subscribe, also fine. Just drop a like, and then maybe the YouTube algorithm will bless you with my video in your feed again in the future. So thanks again. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.